Hello, crafting friends. I'm Doreen DeCibas from It Begins with Ink and Paper. Welcome to Simply Stamping Sunday. I hope you've had a great weekend and have enjoyed all of your activities and the weather. I know this afternoon it's been kind of overcast all day. We're supposed to get that big storm that's coming up the coast, and it's supposed to start to rain sometime tonight, but it was just a cool day here in the Northeast with some sprinkles. I hope you are not getting hit too hard by this storm that's supposed to move up the East Coast if you live on the East Coast. Well, we're back to 7 o'clock at night, so I hope this doesn't mess anyone up. I had to originally change to 6 because I am in a business group that has a Zoom on Sunday nights, and we were meeting at 6 o'clock, but then the time changed in Australia and we started meeting at 7 o'clock, so I had to switch it. Well, last week the time changed back, so we can move back to 7 o'clock, which is a much better time for me. So I'm glad to be back at 7 o'clock. And I'll keep you posted. It's just going to switch back and forth when the time changes. All right, so we are on week 2 of Beautiful Pumpkins. I'm really enjoying this set. It just has such a nice fall vibe to it, and some beautiful images. Tonight, I told you last week, we're going to focus on some masking, and I'm going to show you how you can do that. And we're going to make 3 beautiful cards. So let's get started. I have all the stamps ready to go, and what I want to do is get all the stamping done for all the things that I need to cut out. So I am going to start with our pumpkins, and we're going to do our pumpkins tonight in 2 different colors. So let's start with our pumpkin pie and peach pie inks. We are going to be making 1 small one. So I'm starting with the peach pie, and then I'm going to go to the pumpkin pie, which is a little bit darker. And I hope I'm not leaning too much into the screen. I'm going to stamp this over. And then I'm going to take the large pumpkin, because we also need 1 large. And I just inked it up in the wrong ink. So let's clean that off and go to the peach pie first. There we go. And then we're going to use the pumpkin pie. Hi, Roz. So a friend of mine told me that she thought these pumpkins would make a good tomato. So I've got to kind of figure that out. So that is something I'm going to try. Okay, let me clean off these 2 stamps, because I'm going to use a different color for the next 2 pumpkins. We're going to use Lost Lagoon. So I am going to stamp the solid image on just a scrap piece of paper, and then here. And then I'm going to stamp in first generation with, oh, that was awful. Let's try that again. Sometimes when I have to put my head up too far. Okay, let's try these 2 now. Well, better, but not a ton better. That one's better. I can fix that when I cut it out. All right, so I'm going to leave this open for a minute, because I'm going to need 4 leaves. No, that's in the different ink. Okay, so we'll move that aside. I'm going to take out my old olive ink because I need 7 or 8 leaves. And then I'm going to cut out 4 more in Pretty Peacock. Well, stamp. All right, so next we're going to stamp actually I'm going to start with, we're going to use pecan pie for our Lost Lagoon pumpkins. There we go. And I'm just getting ink all over my hands. All right, and now we're going to, for the other 2, use the Early Espresso. Okay, so this is the stamping and cutting that we need to do. We are also going to be doing just some basic stamping as well, because we're going to be using that masking technique. So I'm just going to clean off my pumpkins and leaves so that we're set to go. All right, so I'm going to set these aside. I'll actually use these for next week's cards because I've already cut some cards out. So our first card tonight is this card here. So great to have you as a friend. I wanted to show you how you can stack pumpkins to make them look like they're stacked. And then I had one pumpkin tumble off the top to have it down here. I used some of the Autumn Toile Designer Series paper and Early Espresso as the cardstock. So let me just show you what we need. We need a piece of 8.5 by 5.5 piece of Early Espresso cardstock. And like I said, I've already cut out the pumpkin and the leaves that we're going to be using. And I've got something for my greeting. This is going to be for the front. So we're just going to start by putting some of the things together that we can. I've got a tape thing out because this is going to run out probably sometime during this card. So I have here a piece of 4 by 5 1/4 piece of Designer Series paper, and I am mounting it on a piece of basic white that is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And then this is going to go on the front of the card. So it's always good to show you little hints about when you're changing your tape dispenser. So I find, and it could be just me, I don't think it is, but I find that I get a lot of adhesive stuck here at the top. So when I change my dispenser, when I'm changing it and refilling it, I first make sure that I grab all of that adhesive that might be stuck at the top. Then I take, I'm just trying to get it into the trash can and off my fingers. All right. Then I take a alcohol prep pad, and I just want to make sure I get all the adhesive off. So I actually go on the outside to make sure none is here, and then I go right in to that spot and I clean off any leftover adhesive, and the alcohol prep pad just cleans it off really quick. So once that is done, then I can place my adhesive in. My case is nice and clean. There's no adhesive hanging around. And I can just start the tape right up again. And this is going to go onto the front of the card. Oops, it's not quite straight. So let's just do that again. That is better. All right, so my greeting, I'm actually using the same greeting, I think, for every card tonight. So I'm so grateful to have a friend like you. I am trying to be really good about sending my cards that I make out, and I send them to a lot of my friends. So there we go with that. And I'm just going to attach this to, so this measured 2 by 1, and this is just 1/8 of an inch bigger, 2 1/8 by 1 1/8, but I think I cut that wrong. So let me just trim that off. There we go. So the greeting's all set. All right, now let's move this aside, and we're going to make my mask. Now there are lots of ways that you can make a mask. The first way, what I'm doing, I'm just going to use cardstock. What I like about cardstock is that it stays sturdy and I can use it over and over again. What I don't always like about cardstock is that it's thicker than other things that I could be using. So it sometimes leaves a little bit of a gap where you're trying to do your stamping, where you're masking. And I can show you how I take care of that. You can also use Post-it notes. For some reason, I don't have any Post-it notes here today. I don't know what I did with them. I must have taken them all to school. So that's a way that you can make a mask. So you stamp it and so that it's on the sticky part of this Post-it note. And then I'll show you what you do afterwards. And then the third way you can do this is use the Stampin' Up! Masking tape. And I have a package. I chose not to use it tonight because I wasn't sure. I was having that internal debate. Will it still be considered Simply Stamping Sunday if I go into another product? So I chose not to use the masking tape. But the masking tape works great and it's very thin. So that's the main reason I chose cardstock. Okay, so I have my paper right here. And what I'm going to be doing is stamping 5 pumpkins going up, and I want them to look like they're stacked on each other. So I'm going to start by stamping the very first one. So I'll start with this ink, and I'm going to have it over here. It's going to be at the bottom, and it's going to be all the way to the left to go with my design that I'm doing. So I'm going to stamp the whole pumpkin. So I'm going to just keep these stamps with my ink so I don't mix them up. And I am going to get that first one stamped. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is I am just going to put the tiniest bit of tape on the back, the double-sided tape. I have cut this so there is no white around it, and that's what you want. And then I'm going to take, let's put these where they go, and stamp my next pumpkin. And I'm not necessarily going to stamp them all perfectly straight, because I want that kind of wobbling effect so that it'll look like there is a reason that pumpkin came off. So there's my image. If I'm not happy about this little gap I have here, then I can take a sponge with some ink, or I can take my marker that matches the ink and just kind of dot in here so it kind of fills it in a little bit. Now that's the downside to using the cardstock. So I've got that piece off. Now I'm going to cover my next pumpkin, and I'm just going to keep repeating. Take that off. Again, I have a little bit of white space because of the cardstock, and I probably should have not colored. I probably shouldn't have cut out the center because that's kind of going to fill in no matter what. So now I'm going to put it on again. And stamp. And that one looks pretty good. I'm still going to just dot this in because I don't want to have a lot of that space there, though some of my leaves are going to cover this up nicely. So now I'm ready to do my last pumpkin. There we go. And let's put and I can take this off. I'm going to put this over to the side because we're going to keep using it tonight. And I'm going to just take my marker to color in just this space here. Just kind of dotting it. So that's what they look like, all stacked on each other. If I was using a Post-it note, I probably wouldn't have had any of that to worry about. Okay, so before I put all of this away, I am going to stamp a pumpkin down here on the bottom of the inside piece. And close these ink pads up. And I am going to take find my little stem. So in Early Espresso, I just need to stamp the one on the top and the one on the inside. And then finally, I'm going to take my old olive and I am going to stamp a leaf right on the one that's inside. Okay, now we just need to put this all together. So I'm going to mount this on. So this piece, I forgot to tell you, I think, is 2.5 by 4.5, and this is 2 5/8 by 4 5/8. And again, all of these measurements will be in the comments at the end of the video. I'm going to add one pumpkin, so it looks like it has fallen off the pile. So I'm just going to put that on with some adhesive. So we're going to put it kind of upside down, like it's tumbling down. And then we're going to add some leaves. And I actually had put these on with some dimensional, but I think I'm just going to add them with glue dots this time. And I'll just change it up a little bit. So I'm just going to add these so that they're going down the line. Not every pumpkin is going to have a leaf, but I'm going to do it on the bottom and then in the middle and try to offset them a little bit. You could go with dimensionals or without dimensionals. Either one would be fine. Okay, so let's go back to our card base. We're going to start by putting this inside. And we're going to put this on the front. And I want a little bit of the Designer Series paper to show through on the left. And then I'm going to take my greeting and I'm going to pop that up on dimensionals. Here are my dimensionals. And our first card is just about done. And there is card number 1. All right, let's go on to card number 2. And this is card number 2. So for this one, we're going to do a little stamping. We're going to have a little pile of leaves and just a very simple layout. And then on the inside, we'll have a pumpkin in here as well. So let's get started on this one. So we're going to start with a piece of 5.5 by 8.5 old Olive Cardstock. And on the front, in Old Olive ink, I'm going to take those beautiful vines and I am going to stamp one at the top of the page in the right-hand corner, and then I'm going to turn it around and stamp it on the bottom of the page in the left-hand corner. And that's all the stamping we're going to do right on the piece of cardstock. We're going to take our inside piece. Let me just move these leaves so I don't lose them. And we're going to stamp one of our small pumpkins. So I'm just going to stamp the pumpkin in the lower right-hand side. And then add the pumpkin. Oops, wrong one. There we go. And we'll add the stem in. There we go. And the inside piece is all done. One of the things that got me into stamping and making the cards was doing all the stamping and the designing. And, you know, at the beginning when I first started, we didn't have die cuts or any of that. And so everything was cut out by hand. So I really enjoy when I'm doing Simply Stamping Sunday because it just gets me back, I feel, to my origins of stamping. Okay, here's what we have to think about when we are doing this. I want this stamp to be in the forefront. So I have to actually stamp this stamp first. So I'm going to take my small pumpkin stamp and I'm going to put it somewhere over here in the lower part, the lower left-hand side of the card. So that's the big thing you have to think about when you are stamping and masking. You have to determine what image do I want to have in the front of the card, because that is the image you have to stamp first. So I'm stamping my smaller pumpkin. There we go. I'm going to grab my mask and I'm going to place it over my pumpkin. And now I'm going to stamp my larger pumpkin. Now again, because I'm using cardstock, I might have a little bit of a gap there that I'll color in with some ink. But I'm going to really press down hard. I want this pumpkin to be a little higher than the other one. There we go. And then I'll use the pumpkin pie to do my two-step stamping. And again, really give it a push so I don't have too much of that not showing. And you can see I ended up with a really small amount of space in between them. So I'm just going to do some little dots with my marker to cover that up. And I went over a little bit, so if I want this look darker too, I can just take my marker and go down a little bit to cover up that little, whoops. We are making books in science class this week, and one of my little guys messed up, and he was so upset he wanted to start all over. And I told him, I said, there are no mistakes when we're paper crafting, only ways to make it better. And it made him feel so good when I showed him how we could just take his mistake and cut it a little bit and make it a little angle, and it looks so cool. And he was pretty happy with that. The same thing goes if you stamp your stem and you're not happy with its placement. I know I have the marker here. You can do the same thing and just add a little bit of color. You can do that with a sponge, whatever you have on hand. All right. So I wanted to add some leaves. So I thought I'd have a little pile of the leaves first at the bottom of the pumpkin. I think I want to stamp my greeting so that I know where I can put those leaves. So there's our greeting. And let's grab the stamp. I think I'm just going to do 2 there. And I'm going to find where I moved all of those leaves. Here they are. We'll just add some glue dots again. We are going to pop a couple up. There we go. This one will add a dimensional too. And we'll put it right over here. And then we'll add a dimensional to this one to add to the little pile of leaves. There we go. And in here, it's a good thing I inked this up. I wanted to add a leaf on the inside too. Okay, so let's put this one together. Oh, and I may not have told you, this piece here measures 3 1/4 by 4 1/2, and this is just 1/8 of an inch smaller, so it'd be 3 1/8 by 4 3/8. So tonight I'm really trying to let the stamps be the star of the show. We're not, we only used 1 card tonight that we have used the designer series paper, because you just don't always need designer series paper. And let's add this, and our second card of the evening will be all set. So I'm just going to center this on the front. And that is our second card of the evening. Okay, the final card of the night is another easy one. But we're going to be using the images that we've already stamped and cut out. So here is the card. And this is the one where we're going to be using the Lost Lagoon pumpkins. And we're going to put one on the inside as well. All right, so let's set that aside and let's get going on this. So, to start, you need a 5 1/2 by 8 1/2 piece of Lost Lagoon cardstock. And I am just going to clean my leaf stamp, because I'm going to be stamping my leaves in the Lost Lagoon ink. So we are just going to find that and wipe it off. And all I need to do, I don't know if you notice, is just really stamp around the edges. So I don't need to worry about doing a whole lot. And I could have done the vines, but I decided let's just try doing the leaves. And I can just move them and have them going in lots of different directions. So just turning my cardstock, or my stamp this time, around just to get it in different positions, so it's not just going the same way each time. There we go. That's all we need to do there. Now I have a piece of pretty peacock that measures 4 3/4 by 3 1/4, and I am just going to set this on an angle like that on the front of the card. Just to do something a little different. So there we go. Now I have, let's see, I think nope, I should have, I don't. Let me go to my, I need 3 of those teal pumpkins. I had one out on my desk and I thought it was an extra, but it must not have been. Okay, so now on this one here, this is going to the inside of the card, and we're just going to take one of these pumpkins, and I am just going to add some adhesive, and I'm going to put it in the right hand lower corner, and I'm going to take one of the leaves, add a glue dot to it, and put that on the side. And then this is going to go right inside the card. So that's what it looks like. You just want to make sure we're putting it in correctly. All right, there we go. Now this piece here measures 4 1/2 by 3. And this is where we're going to just be putting our pumpkins. And I decided on this one, instead of masking, I was going to just layer them. So there's the first one. And I'm going to add 1 leaf. I think I am just going to put these right on so they'll be ready to go. And these are the ones that I stamped in Pretty Peacock, so that they're a little bit darker. This one's going to sit right next to this, and this one's going to be popped up. Does anyone have tomorrow off? We never get this holiday off. Never. And last week I was in the cafeteria and I was checking to see what they had for lunch, and I saw on the menu it said Monday, no school. And I'm like, well, that can't be right. What are they thinking of? And sure enough, this year we have tomorrow off, which just so surprised me. So I'm just adding these beautiful leaves to the front. So this is what our pumpkins look like. And then in this space up here, I'm just going to add the greeting, which I told you I've been using the same greeting all night. It just seemed to fit every card. And I'm going to do this in Pretty Peacock. And that's what the front panel looks like. And now I'm just going to adhere this to the front of the card. And our third card for week 2 is done. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to try to have it be a little bit offset, but this one's going to go straight across so that we see some of that peacock peacock paper below it. And that is card number 3. So let's take a look and recap the 3 cards we made tonight. Let's move some of this out of the way. So our first card was that stack of pumpkins with one of them falling off. And we used some designer series paper to make the background. Then our second card was just this really, really simple 2 pumpkin card that we masked the small pumpkin so it looks like it's in front of the bigger pumpkin. And then finally, our last one, we just used some different colors for our pumpkins and stamped the background, offset the layered papers, and came up with this with those beautiful Lost Lagoon pumpkins. So I hope you have enjoyed this week's beautiful pumpkins. I will be back next Sunday night at 7 o'clock, remember, and we will be doing week 3. I can't believe how fast October's going now. And of course, I'll be back Friday night for a new edition of Fun Fold Friday. So have a great week, everyone, and I will be live soon. Good night.